Hey guys, this is my tutorial on how to make custom login screens for Crossfire. I've also included all the files that are used in this video in the description below so that you can go ahead and make it pretty much straight away once you've watched this. For this tutorial I'll be using paint.net as the primary image editor, so although you can use other ones, this one's primarily for paint.net, so it is easier if you do follow along with this program. Okay, first things first, you want to browse over to your Crossfire directory, so this is wherever you've installed Crossfire to on your computer. You want to then go to the res folder, then UI underscore login, and what this has is it has all the files that are used for the login screen, all the images that are used for the login screen, so the background, the buttons, and the save your username button. Each button has a up, focus, and down state. So the up state is when you're actually looking at the image and you're not actually doing anything with it, it's just there on the screen. The focus image is when you're actually hovering over it, and then the down image is the image that appears when you actually click on it. I've included a set of buttons in the file below. But if you want to go out and create your own, remember to make a button, an image for each one. So otherwise you're going to run into errors such as images not appearing or other things. So if you open up the login background image that I've included in the file, that gives you a login box that's already pre-made for you. What you want to do now is that you can put any image that you want as the background of it. So if we go to layers and then import from file, you can then go and pick any image that you want, obviously on your computer, and then I'm just going to pick this one. Once you've imported it, it will resize the canvas to the size of the image, so if you are using a larger image you are going to have to do a few extra steps. What we'll do first is we'll position it to how we want it, so if I just move it up a bit. And then if you go to image and then canvas size, and then where it says anchor, if you set that to the top left, and then if we change the pixel size to width being 800 and the height being 600, it will then crop out the rest of the image, but it will keep all the image where the login box is. So if you hit OK, it will then resize the image to that, and then what we can do now is if you hit File, Save As, and then if you save as a .tga if it's not already set to it, and then you want to save it as login background.tga, and if you hit save, and then you want to make sure that it's set to 32-bit and that compress RLE is checked, and then if you hit OK, it'll save the image as the .tga because that's the file that the client generally uses. You can use a PNG, you can use a JPEG, etc, etc, but TGAs are generally what I like to use for the client. Okay, now that that's all sorted, we can go ahead and start editing in the locations and sizes of all the buttons, where you enter your password and username, etc, etc. So if you go back to where the original login files were saved, if you go up a folder and then if you go to the scripts folder, in there'll be a file called login.txt. If you open that up with Notepad, you'll have a whole list of options that look fairly daunting at first, but are fairly logical when you actually look at them. First off, we've got the image background, and all that has that you need to edit is the text path, and that shows where the file is actually saved. As we haven't actually changed anything or changed the name of it, we're keeping it similar. You don't need to change it. The width and the height are obviously the 800 by 600, so that's fine. The login ID, edit login ID is where you enter your username, and this has a set of extra options because it's a text box. So here you can change what font name you want to use, the font size, whether it's bold, whether it's italic, whether you want to have it on the left, right, center, whether you want it to be appearing above the line, along the line, or below the line. You can set whether it has an outline or not, whether it's numbers only to annoy people, what the font color is, and whether it has an outline color. The same again for the password. So of course if you do set it to numbers only, you will annoy people and people won't actually be able to log in. But then we move on to the buttons. So we've got the button login, button exit, and button save ID check. The button login is obviously the login button. You've got the three images that I stated earlier, so you've got text up, which is the up state, down, which is when you click it, focus is when you hover over it. You've got the X and Y value, and this takes it from the top left pixel of each image, and it's the same for the exit. But the save ID check doesn't actually show any images being saved or used here. That's because they're already built into the client, so you don't actually need to change it. But what I've noticed is that the width and the height, if you ever do your own custom ones of these, you have to use 16 pixels, otherwise it just replicates and breaks the image. I don't know why it does it, it's just how the client is. Okay, so if we go back to paint.net, we want to make a new layer, and we want to start drawing a box onto this layer. And if you look in the bottom left, you can see the amount of pixels that it's using. So if we make it the same size as it says in the text file, so currently it's set to 136 by 16 for the login ID. If we make it the same size as that, and then if we go to the top left of the box itself, you'll be able to get the X and Y value for it. So currently this is set to 277 by 252 after I've moved it down to fit in where the username should be. So if we change the X value on the login text file to 277 and the Y value to 252, that'll save it fine. That'll move it on the actual client to that area. Then again, if we do this, if we actually just move the box down a bit to where the password would be, we can repeat the process and get the same for the password. So this is actually 277 by 282, which is just about 30 odd pixels below. Now that we've got the ID in the password box, if we go to layers and then we do import from file, if we import the login button, we can then start moving that over to where the login button would actually be. I've left them on this image so that you can see where they would be. So if we just move it along, the X value is obviously the top left value, but if you can see this time in the bottom left, you've got the full set of settings, well, full information. So this currently is 130 by 36 pixels, so if we change the width to 130 by 36 and the X value is 268, X is obviously always the left and Y is always the right value. So that's 268 and the X and the Y value is 339. And then if we move it across to where the cancel button shows, we can do exactly the same thing. We don't even need to import it again because they have the same size button. So if we set the X value to 402 as it says here, and then 339 again, and then obviously 130 by 36 for the width and the height. Now if we import the save button on image, which is the image that's used for saving your username, if you import that and then move it over to where the box shows next to remember username, you'll see that it says 16 by 16 height, as I've already set that, and then X and Y values of 515 and 314. And now you need to copy this both onto the button save ID check and image save ID check, because obviously one, it's a button, two, it's an image, and there's no actual images shown here. It's all done by the client. But okay, once you've done that, you can save the text file and you can close that. That's all set. You can also then close the image that you saved earlier. Don't save over it because you'll be saving a whole load of buttons and rubbish on top of the background that you've already made. If you were to use your own custom buttons or your own custom login ID areas, you would obviously import the files and then change the values, or create the files on the go. So these are not set values, you can change them to whatever you want. Now if you want to go grab the files that you extracted earlier and edited, all the images, all the buttons, etc, etc, if you want to copy them, if you copy the whole folder, the login folder, if you want to go back over to your res/UI folder in Crossfire, and then if you paste it in there and make sure to overwrite all the files in it, this will move all the files into your login box and change it so that it's whatever image you want now. Once you've done that, we can load up the client and we can see exactly how it looks. if something doesn't look correct to you, you can then go and back into the text file and say move it up or down a bit, move it left and right. It is a large amount of trial and error this, because you can't test it on the live environment, as in the client loads everything whenever you load it back up, so you can't change something on the fly. But yeah, once you've done that, you're pretty much done. I mean, it's fairly simple. This is the easiest mod to do out of everything. Kill marks are not easier, they take a large amount more time. But yeah, I hope this has been a quick insight. I hope you've gained a bit of understanding, and I hope that you can go off and make your own ones now. Thanks for watching.